Now, the other story that was at the top of the headlines while I was journeying across the third world was that of the NFL head coach who claims that he's being oppressed and persecuted by the league, which has made him a millionaire. As you may have heard, Brian Flores, a black man, was fired by the Miami Dolphins after the team underperformed and missed the playoffs. Now, the NFL is notorious for firing head coaches at the drop of a hat. If you have one bad season, you're going to be out on your butt. You may even be fired after a good season. The most infamous such example is Marty Schottenheimer back, I think it was 2006, 2007. He was fired by the Chargers after a 14-2 season. Jim Harbaugh was run out of town by the 49ers after winning 44 games in 3 seasons and taking his team to the Super Bowl. And both of those coaches, by the way, are white. So this rule applies to white and black coaches alike. You have to win. You have to win a lot. You have to win now. You have to win playoff games, or you get canned. Because the only thing that the NFL cares about is winning. That's all that matters. Now, not all teams are very good at achieving that objective, but that is the objective nonetheless. So Flores, he got fired, like many Miami Dolphins coaches before him, and he could have taken his lumps and quickly gotten a new job either as a head coach or a coordinator with a new team. Instead, he chose to file a lawsuit claiming that he's the victim of racism. He says that systemic racism in the NFL prevents black men like himself from becoming coaches, even though he is a coach and has held a coaching job in the league for years. Notably, the text of his lawsuit, which reads like a compilation of tweets from accounts with BLM slogans in their profiles, doesn't offer any evidence of racism. Instead, it makes a series of unsubstantiated and sometimes quite wild allegations which, if true, still wouldn't amount to racism. Flores also accuses the New York Giants of bringing him in for an interview just because he's a minority, even though they had already determined to hire somebody else. I don't know if that's true or not, but it might be. And the reason that it might be is because the Giants would have been following the very affirmative action policies that were meant to alleviate the mythical racism against black coaching candidates that Flores is complaining about. So the league has a policy called the Rooney Rule, which requires teams to interview minority candidates. Even if they already know they want to hire somebody else, they have to bring in a minority candidate for an interview. That's the rule. The Giants followed that rule, and for their trouble, they're now being sued for bigotry. Bigotry against black coaches because of a rule that was put in place for their sake. The NFL has defended itself meekly, assuring the public that it's not engaging in any conspiracy to prevent black people from becoming coaches. And yet, while defending itself, Commissioner Roger Goodell still issued a memo stating, quote, "We will reevaluate and examine all policies, guidelines, and initiatives relating to diversity, equity, and inclusion, including as they relate to gender. We are retaining outside experts to assist in this review, and will also solicit input from current and former players and coaches, advocates, and other authorities in this area. Our goal is simple. Make our efforts and those of the clubs more effective so that real and tangible results will be achieved." Translation. We aren't racist, but if you think we're racist, then yes, we're totally racist. Because it would be racist to tell you that you're wrong about us being racist. Brian Flores, meanwhile, is doing the media tour, trying to make his case. Here he is with Don Lemon.
I believe that the system is broken in the National Football League in regards to hiring minorities and black coaches, head coaches, and people in positions of power, GM, head coach. And I'm doing it because I think about my 2 boys and my daughter. And there just simply isn't enough representation of people who look like them in head coaching roles, in general manager roles, in executive and president roles in the National Football League. And I want them to be able to look at those roles. I want them to be able to look and believe that they can get into a role like that. And that's simply not the case right now.
Inspiring. Poor guy, too. I mean, multi-millionaire coach in the NFL. Nobody has suffered as much as him, except Colin Kaepernick and, the employees of Spotify. Those are really the groups in America, in the world, that have suffered the most. Well, one thing I can tell you as a 4-star chef myself, amateur chef, but I consider myself a 4-star chef, your kitchen is not complete without great kitchen knives. And that's why you need Kamakoto. Kamakoto taps into more than 800 years of traditional techniques from Honshu, Japan. Kamakoto also uses steel sourced from mills in Japan, and each blade is crafted using techniques that have been honed and perfected by generations of knife smiths. Each knife comes in a beautiful heavy-duty ash wood box and make sure that the knife is stored safely as well. Each Kamakoto knife goes through a rigorous 19-step process that takes several years from start to finish to complete. Our expert bladesmiths forge and shape raw steel into hardy blades, polishing and sharpening them to an excruciatingly fine edge. Each knife is individually inspected. Kamakoto is so confident that their knives will work for you that each knife comes with a lifetime guarantee. Because of their single bevel edge, Kamakoto knives can achieve an unbelievably sharp edge you just can't get with other knives. They can cut through your ribeye like butter. That is guaranteed. Kamakoto is currently having a massive extended New Year sale, and on top of that sale, you can get an additional $50 off any purchase you make with discount code Matt Walsh. So click the link below or go to kamakoto.com/Matt Walsh and use promo code Matt Walsh to save an extra $50 today. Now, yeah, he's rich and prominent and powerful, but he could be even more rich and prominent and powerful if not for all the racism. You know, so this is a guy sitting there saying, yeah, I've got, $10 million. But I could have 20 million if not for all this racism. Notice how he says the system is broken with regards to hiring black coaches, but then quickly qualifies by saying head coaches. Why? Well, because in fact, there are tons of black coaches, tons of black coordinators, tons of black players and staff at all levels. Black people are massively overrepresented in the NFL in comparison to population size at almost every position and every level on every team. Black people make up 13% of the population, yet nearly 60% of the athletes in the league. But there are a few areas where that's not the case, which can only be the product of racism, he says. I wonder, though, if the system is broken in regards to hiring black head coaches, what about the system in regards to hiring white cornerbacks? There are currently 0 of those in the entire league. There are also very few white running backs, very few white wide receivers, a few, but not many. Very few white safeties, white linebackers. The vast majority of the highest paid stars in the league at most positions are not white. Is that a sign of anti-white bias? Well, no, of course not. Because underrepresentation of whites is never racism, while underrepresentation of blacks is always racism. So you see how that works. There's no evidence or reason to believe that any black man has ever been turned down for a coaching job because of his race. The claim is preposterous on its face, though that might change. Thanks to the Kaepernick wing of the NFL, here's what I will say. And Media Matters are going to have a lot of fun with this. If I were an NFL owner right now, I might at this point actually hesitate to hire any coach who is not a straight white male. If I'm running an NFL organization in the year 2022, I would prefer to hire a straight white male. Why? Because a straight white male is the only kind of coach I can fire without being sued. Flores and his ilk pretend that they're helping more black people get hired, but the opposite is the case. Whereas before, race may not have factored into the equation, now owners have to think when evaluating a black candidate, they have to think, well, if this guy leads us to a 3-14 season, I probably can't fire him without Al Sharpton holding a press conference outside the stadium. But if I hire the white guy, I can fire him after a 14-3 season, and nobody will care. Flores doesn't care about that, though, because this is all about him. Being an NFL coach was profitable, but being a victim is even more profitable. It used to be something of a joke to call somebody a professional victim. Now that's a literal occupation available to certain demographics. They even offer college degrees in the field. Why do something for money when you can sit around crying and make more money and earn greater adulation for it? That's the calculation Flores has made. You can hardly blame him from a financial perspective. I mean, it makes sense. But from a moral perspective and the perspective of self-respect and dignity, which Flores has chosen to forfeit, we can certainly say to him, you, sir, are canceled. Well, I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Matt Walsh Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right down there so you can stay up to date on all of our future content.